A silent stone giant stares out from the jungle, a mystery carved from a single block of solid basalt. This is one of the Olmec Colossal Heads, and its existence defies simple explanation. An ancient civilization with no metal tools, no wheels, and no pack animals somehow quarried, carved, and moved this 20-ton monument across dozens of miles of swampland. How was such a feat of engineering even possible, and more importantly, why did they do it? By the end of our journey, you will understand the incredible story of America's first great civilization and the true purpose of these enigmatic stone faces. We will uncover how they were made, who they represent, and why they were deliberately buried by their own creators. What does a single forgotten face tell us about the rise and fall of an entire world? For nearly a millennium, this mysterious civilization flourished in the swampy river basins of what is now southern Mexico. The Olmec are widely considered the mother culture of the Americas, the foundational society from which all other great Mesoamerican civilizations would eventually grow. Their timeline is staggering, spanning from around 1400 to 400 years before the Common Era. That is a period of 1,000 years, a longevity that dwarfs the entire history of the United States. In their tropical heartland, they built the first major cities in the Americas, centers like San Lorenzo and Venta, which were not mere villages but complex hubs of political power, religion, and art. They were the pioneers, the first in the region to develop a sophisticated calendar, a system of writing, and a distinct architectural style featuring massive earthen pyramids. Think of them as the blueprint, the later Maya with their intricate calendars and towering temples, and the Aztec with their powerful empire, all built upon a cultural foundation laid down by the Olmec centuries earlier. This is why understanding who the Olmec were is so critical to solving the mystery of the colossal heads. These sculptures were not created in a vacuum. They are the ultimate expression of a powerful, complex, and deeply influential society operating at the peak of its abilities. The first of these stone giants to be seen by modern eyes was not found in a grand city, but lying half-buried in a field. In 1862, a farm worker in the region of Tres Zapotes struck something impossibly hard with his plow. He began to dig, and the earth gave up a colossal head, a face staring up at the sky after more than 2,000 years. The news reached José Melgar, a Mexican archaeologist who rushed to the site. His astonishment was immediate and profound. He was not just looking at a massive sculpture, he was looking at a face with features that, to his 19th century eyes, looked distinctly African. This single observation sent a shockwave through the small world of archaeology at the time. The prevailing belief was that the pre-Columbian Americas were populated by simple, isolated tribes. This head, with its striking and unfamiliar visage, suggested a history far more complex and interconnected than anyone had dared to suspect. It was a mystery that would smolder for decades. Then, in the 1920s and 30s, a new wave of explorers and archaeologists, armed with a growing sense of purpose, pushed deeper into the Olmec heartland. At the ancient site of Venta, they made a discovery that defied belief. It was not just one head. They unearthed several, arranged in a line, a council of stone rulers silently guarding a long-lost ceremonial center. Each new excavation brought another giant to light, another face from the depths of time. With every discovery, the sheer scale of the Olmec achievement became clearer. These were not isolated oddities. They were part of a vast and sophisticated artistic tradition, the signature pieces of a civilization that had mastered its environment in ways no one had previously imagined. The story of the Americas was being rewritten, one colossal head at a time, but this revelation only led to a more pressing question. If these were portraits of actual people, who were these powerful individuals, and what kind of society gave them the authority to command such monumental tributes? These stone portraits are physical marvels that push the limits of ancient engineering. The sheer size of these sculptures is almost impossible to grasp until you stand beside one. The largest of these heads stands nearly 10 feet tall, which is taller than the ceiling in most rooms and weighs a staggering 24 tons. To put that weight into perspective, that is heavier than 3 full-grown adult elephants. This is not a small statue on a pedestal, it is a behemoth, and it was not carved from just any stone. The Olmec chose one of the toughest materials available, volcanic basalt. This stone is incredibly dense and hard, a formidable opponent for any carver. Imagine trying to shape a mountain with only stone tools. Every feature, every subtle curve of the lips, the strong brow, the firm set of the jaw, all of it was painstakingly pounded, pecked, and ground into existence from this unyielding volcanic rock. But the first, most monumental challenge was not the carving itself, it was getting the stone. The basalt for these giants did not come from a local quarry. It was sourced from the Tuxtla Mountains, a rugged volcanic range located dozens of miles away from the great Olmec centers like San Lorenzo and La Venta. So before a single mark could be made, the Olmec had to solve an immense logistical puzzle. They had to locate a suitable boulder, detach it from the mountain, and then move a 20-ton block of stone across a landscape of rivers, swamps, and dense jungle without the wheel and without any beasts of burden to pull it. The very existence of these heads is a testament to a will so powerful it could move mountains, or at the very least colossal pieces of them. 17 of these stone giants have been pulled from the earth, each one a unique individual from a lost world. They are not mass-produced copies, but a gallery of powerful personalities. The ancient city of San Lorenzo holds the record with 10 colossal heads emerging from its soil. La Venta follows with 4, and Tres Zapotes, where the first was discovered, claims 2. A final head was found at the smaller site of La Cobata. This geographic spread tells us that creating these monuments was a widespread tradition, a defining practice of Olmec elite power. While they share a common artistic language, no two faces are exactly alike. Take the most famous head from San Lorenzo, often called simply Head 1. Its features are strikingly realistic, with a furrowed brow, strong cheekbones, and a mouth set in a determined, almost stern expression. The helmet he wears is adorned with an intricate design, a symbol of his high status. Then there is the colossal head from La Venta, Monument 1. Its face is broader, its headgear simpler but no less commanding. Another from San Lorenzo has a more youthful, rounded face, suggesting a different ruler or perhaps a different point in his life. Some heads wear plain helmets, while others are decorated with elaborate patterns or even what appear to be animal paws. These subtle variations in expression, headdress, and even the shape of the face are our strongest clues. They were not depicting gods or mythical heroes. They were carving portraits of their living, breathing leaders, immortalizing the men who held the power to command such incredible labor. Each face is a frozen moment in time, a king or chieftain whose name is lost to history, but whose visage has endured for millennia. What stories could these 17 rulers tell us if their stone lips could speak? The 10 colossal heads of San Lorenzo represent the earliest and most imposing collection of these stone giants. As the oldest known Olmec center, San Lorenzo was the proving ground for this monumental art form, and its heads possess a raw, powerful energy distinct from later examples. Their features are often more pronounced, with heavier brows and more deeply carved facial lines, giving them an intense, almost brooding presence. Archaeologists believe these 10 portraits were not scattered randomly, but were originally arranged in a specific, meaningful order, perhaps lining a central plaza or a ceremonial pathway, creating a stone pantheon of the city's most revered rulers. This grand display of power, however, did not last. Evidence at San Lorenzo points to a startling conclusion. These heads were not lost to time or invaders. They were deliberately toppled, defaced, and buried by the Olmec themselves. Deep grooves were carved into the stone, and in some cases the monuments were carefully interred in long, narrow trenches. This was not an act of vandalism, but a ritual decommissioning. The intentional burial of these royal portraits suggests a profound cultural shift, a symbolic end to a dynasty or a rejection of the old order. A new leadership may have sought to break from the past, consigning the faces of former kings to the earth in a powerful ceremony that closed one chapter of Olmec history and opened another. What could have prompted a civilization to so carefully dismantle its own legacy, burying its founding fathers in a silent, orderly grave? This ritual burial at San Lorenzo marks a profound turning point, but the story of the colossal heads was far from over. As the center of Olmec power shifted from San Lorenzo, a new city rose to prominence, and with it came a new chapter in the saga of these stone rulers. Venta became the new heart of the Olmec world, a sprawling island city dominated by a massive clay pyramid that towered over the surrounding swamplands. This was not just a city, it was a sacred landscape, an axis mundi designed to bridge the human and divine realms. And it is here, within this carefully orchestrated ceremonial complex, that we find the next group of 4 colossal heads. These were not placed at random. They were positioned with clear intention, their heavy gazes fixed upon the city's most important plazas and avenues. One head, for instance, was found facing the Great Pyramid itself, as if standing eternal guard over the most sacred structure in the city. Another was situated to oversee a complex of mosaic pavements and altars, places of profound ritual significance. They were sentinels of stone, their presence legitimizing the power of the rulers by connecting them physically and symbolically to the very center of the cosmos. The arrangement suggests a lineage, a row of ancestral kings watching over the living, their authority literally set in stone. While the San Lorenzo heads feel like individual portraits of powerful chieftains, the Venta group seems to represent something more established, a formalized dynasty integrated into the spiritual heartbeat of the city. Their placement transforms them from mere monuments into active participants in the city's sacred life, silent witnesses to the ceremonies that defined Olmec power for generations. What rituals did these stone faces observe, and what secrets of this island sanctuary do they still hold? So who are these silent, stone-faced individuals staring out from the jungle? The leading theory, and the most compelling, is that they are portraits of powerful Olmec rulers. Each unique face, with its distinct expression and personalized headdress, serves as a kind of royal resume carved in stone. The elaborate helmets are not mere decoration, they are crowns. They are symbols of authority, perhaps representing specific titles, lineages, or great achievements. The strong, realistic features, from the determined set of a jaw to the lines on a brow, suggest these were real men, immortalized at the peak of their power. Commissioning a 20-ton monument was the ultimate display of that power, a permanent claim to legitimacy that shouted across the centuries, "I was here, I ruled, and my line endures." This was the Olmec version of a king's official portrait, but on a scale so grand it defied any challenger. Yet, this royal portrait theory is not the only idea on the table. Another fascinating possibility connects these heads to the most important game in Mesoamerica, the sacred ball game. This was not a simple sport, it was a ritual reenactment of cosmic battles, often with profound religious and political consequences. Some scholars point to the distinctive headgear on the sculptures, noting its resemblance to the protective helmets and padding worn by ball players. Could a colossal head be the ultimate trophy, commemorating a legendary player or a victorious team captain whose triumph on the court secured divine favor for his entire city? There is also the more unsettling notion that these are not honored leaders but defeated enemies. In some later Mesoamerican cultures, the decapitation of a rival king was a potent act, and the display of his likeness could serve as a permanent warning. Yet the care with which the Olmec crafted these faces, the subtle individuality and lack of any clear signs of mockery, makes this theory less convincing. They feel more like revered ancestors than humiliated foes. Then there is the spiritual angle. Could they be gods? While their humanity is striking, they might represent deified rulers or powerful underworld deities. The truth is, we are left with a gallery of identities, a collection of possibilities as solid and unyielding as the stone itself. Were they kings, athletes, gods, or some combination of all three? The answer may be written in those silent stone faces, if only we could decipher their ancient language. Look closely at the crown each of these stone rulers wears. This is not a simple helmet or a generic hat. Every single one is unique, intricately carved with symbols and patterns that transform this headgear from mere decoration into a complex language of power. The so-called helmet is the key to unlocking the identity of the person portrayed. It is a heraldic device, a badge of office, and a resume, all carved into a single piece of basalt. On one head, you might see a tight-fitting cap decorated with a pattern of interlocking knots or scrolls. On another, a more elaborate structure rises, featuring what looks like the claw of a jaguar gripping the front. Some even display what could be stylized animal heads or feathered elements. These are not random artistic choices. They are deliberate symbols meant to communicate specific information to the people who saw them. In a society without written records that we can fully read, these helmets were the billboards of their day, broadcasting the wearer's status, lineage, and achievements for all to see. So what do these symbols actually mean? One of the most compelling clues comes from other Olmec artifacts. Small stone figurines and carvings often depict individuals wearing very similar, though smaller, forms of headgear. In many of these smaller scenes, the figures are engaged in the sacred ball game. They wear thick, protective belts and these distinctive helmets, poised to strike a solid rubber ball with their hips. The parallel is striking. Could the colossal heads be portraying legendary ball players? The game was far more than sport. It was a ritual that decided fates, a cosmic drama where the movement of the ball mirrored the journey of the sun. A victorious captain might be honored with a monument that ensured his legendary status for eternity. Another powerful interpretation points toward shamanic transformation. The jaguar was the ultimate symbol of supernatural power in Olmec culture, a creature that moved between the forest floor and the canopy, between the world of the living and the spirit realm. A helmet adorned with jaguar paws or fangs could signify that this ruler was also a shaman, a person capable of crossing those same boundaries. He would be a spiritual leader as much as a political one, a man who could commune with powerful forces to ensure the community's survival. Then there is the possibility of military rank. The helmets could denote a war leader with specific symbols representing conquered lands or successful battles. The sheer variety from one head to the next suggests a society with multiple paths to power and prestige. A ruler's helmet was his unique signature, a permanent declaration of exactly how he earned his right to command 24 tons of stone. Was he a divine king, a champion athlete, or a fearsome warrior? The answer might be written plainly on his head. That very first colossal head discovered in the field sparked a debate that would rage for over a century. When José Melgar saw that massive stone face in 1862, he was struck by features that seemed to him distinctly African. This single observation ignited the African features controversy, a transatlantic puzzle that questions the very isolation of the ancient Americas. Proponents of this theory, known as diffusionists, argue that the broad noses, full lips, and overall visage of certain heads are clear evidence of pre-Columbian voyages from Africa. Scholars like Ivan van Sertima, in his influential work They Came Before Columbus, built a compelling case. He suggested that West African seafarers, specifically from the Mali and Olmec empires, could have crossed the Atlantic using the ocean currents, bringing their knowledge and influencing the emerging Olmec civilization. For many, this idea is powerful. It rewrites a history that has often marginalized African achievements, placing them at the very foundation of the New World's first great culture. It presents a narrative of a globally connected ancient world, challenging the traditional story of a hemisphere discovered only by Europeans. The emotional weight of this theory is undeniable, offering a sense of reclaimed heritage and shared history. But does the archaeological evidence support such a journey? The mainstream scientific perspective offers a very different explanation, one rooted firmly in the local soil of Mesoamerica. Archaeologists point to a simple yet profound fact. The facial features seen on the colossal heads are not foreign to the region at all. Look at the indigenous populations of the Mexican Gulf Coast today, and you will see the same strong brow lines, the same full lips, and the same broad noses. These sculptures are not depicting visitors from across the sea, they are portraying the local people themselves. The Olmec artists were creating realistic portraits of their own rulers, capturing the physical characteristics that were, and still are, common among the native people of the area. Furthermore, the entire cultural context of the heads is 100% Olmec. The specific headdresses, the artistic style, the basalt stone from the Tuxtla Mountains, the placement within their ceremonial centers, every single element fits seamlessly into the local cultural and environmental framework. There is no accompanying evidence of African technology, no sudden appearance of foreign crops, no artifacts from across the Atlantic found in Olmec soil. The transition from simpler societies to the complex Olmec civilization shows a clear local evolutionary path. So why did these features seem so foreign to early European observers? The answer may lie more in perception than in prehistory. The scholars of the 19th and early 20th centuries often operated with a limited, Eurocentric view of human diversity. They failed to recognize the vast range of features native to the Americas, and in their astonishment, they reached for a familiar yet distant explanation. The colossal heads stand as a powerful reminder that the ancient Americas were home to their own incredible diversity, capable of producing monumental art that reflected their own world in their own image. To carve a king, you must first move a mountain. The journey of every colossal head began here in the volcanic heart of the Tuxtla Mountains. This rugged range looming over the coastal plains was the sole source of the perfect stone. The Olmec sought out a specific type of volcanic basalt, a dense, fine-grained rock that could withstand the elements and hold the sharp, clean lines of a master sculptor. Their primary quarry was a place called Cerro Sintepec, a specific volcano where the basalt flows offered boulders of immense size and flawless quality. But this was not a simple rock collection site. This was an open-air workshop of almost unimaginable effort. The first challenge was finding a boulder of suitable scale, one that was already partially detached from the mountain. Then came the extraction. Without metal tools, without dynamite, how do you liberate a 20-ton block from a volcanic mountainside? The Olmec were masters of stone, and they used the elements themselves as their primary tools. They would have built fires directly against the rock face, heating the basalt to a high temperature. Then, at the critical moment, they would douse the superheated stone with cold water. This thermal shock causes the rock to fracture and weaken, creating fissures and cracks along predictable lines. It was a brutal, painstaking process of heating and cooling, repeated for days or even weeks until the massive block finally broke free. But that was only the first step. Now they had a multi-ton, jagged boulder lying at the foot of a mountain. Using stone hammers and wooden levers, teams of workers would have begun the initial shaping, knocking off the most prominent protrusions to reduce the weight and create a rough, transportable form. This pre-carving was essential, a calculated risk to lighten the load for the incredible journey that lay ahead. Every mark on that raw stone was a step in an epic logistical operation, a testament to a will that could command not just people, but the very forces of nature. Once liberated from the mountain, the real test of Olmec will begin. The challenge was now one of pure physics and human endurance, moving a 24-ton block of shaped basalt across 60 to 100 kilometers of some of the most difficult terrain on Earth. This was not a straight path on solid ground. The route plunged through dense, vine-choked jungles, descended into treacherous swamps, and crossed powerful, unpredictable rivers. To solve this, the Olmec likely became masters of leverage and coordination, employing a system that has been theorized for centuries: log rollers. Imagine a massive workforce, hundreds strong, first preparing a path. They would have laid down a track of felled logs, creating a temporary road through the wilderness. Then, using thick ropes woven from tough jungle fibers, they would have leveraged the head onto a sturdy wooden sledge. Teams of pullers would haul on the ropes while others constantly ran ahead, picking up the logs from the back and placing them in front, creating a continuous, rolling pathway. The sound must have been deafening, a chorus of shouting men, the groaning of wood under immense strain, and the deep, grinding rumble of stone sliding forward inch by agonizing inch. But what about the rivers? A log roller path is useless in water. For river crossings, the entire operation would have shifted. The head would have been carefully maneuvered onto a massive, specially built raft, likely constructed from buoyant local woods. Here, the current itself could become an ally. Teams in canoes would have towed and guided the raft downstream, a slow, perilous aquatic procession where one wrong move could send their king's portrait to the bottom of the river forever. So how many people did this take? Conservative estimates suggest that just to move a single head, a crew of at least 500 people would have been required. Some calculations push that number to over 1,000. This was not a matter of a few days. The entire journey from quarry to city could have taken several months, requiring a staggering logistical operation to feed, house, and organize this temporary city of workers on the move. This was more than just brute force. It was a breathtaking display of social organization, a society so unified and so commanded that it could redirect a significant portion of its population for a single symbolic task. Every inch of that journey was a declaration of power, written not in words, but in the coordinated strain of 1,000 people moving a mountain for their king. The true genius of the Olmec sculptor was revealed not in the quarry, but at the journey's end. With the colossal block finally resting in its place of honor, the most delicate and time-consuming phase could begin. Transforming a rough-hewn boulder into a lifelike portrait required a mastery of abrasion, a patient battle waged with stone against stone. The Olmec artists possessed no chisels of iron or steel. Their tools were the earth itself, harnessing stones that were even harder than the unyielding basalt. They wielded hand-held cobbles of jadate and hematite, minerals whose crystalline structure allowed them to be sharper and more durable than the volcanic rock they were shaping. The process was one of relentless, incremental force. Artisans would have spent countless hours pecking at the surface with pointed jadate tools, creating a pock-marked texture across the entire form. This was followed by a stage of pounding with heavier hammerstones, gradually smoothing the peaks and beginning to define the larger planes of the face, the brow, and the cheeks. But the final finish, the smooth, almost skin-like texture that makes these heads so compelling, was achieved through abrasive grinding. Using sand, water, and a flat piece of leather or wood as a backing, workers would have rubbed the surface for weeks on end, polishing the basalt to a fine sheen. Every subtle curve of a lip, every gentle fold of an eyelid was created through this exhausting, repetitive motion. This was not a task for a single artist working in isolation. It required a coordinated team of skilled artisans, each specializing in a different stage of the work. One group would focus on the rough pecking, another on the finer shaping, and a final team on the meticulous polishing. The creation of a single head was a symphony of coordinated effort, a project that could have spanned many months or even several years. To look at the serene, polished face of a finished colossal head is to witness the culmination of thousands of days of human labor, all dedicated to the slow, deliberate act of persuading a mountain to show the face of a king. But why go to such impossible lengths? Why would a society dedicate thousands of hours of labor and the coordinated effort of its entire community to carve a single face in stone? The answer is that these heads were far more than portraits. They were the ultimate instruments of power, functioning simultaneously as political propaganda and sacred objects. On the most basic level, the very existence of a colossal head was a ruler's most potent political statement. Imagine the message it sent to every person living in that city and to any visiting dignitary from a rival state. To see that 20-ton visage was to understand, instantly and without words, that the person depicted commanded a force of will so absolute he could redirect the labor of hundreds, even thousands of people for years at a time. He controlled the resources, the food, the organization, and the sheer manpower required to move a mountain. This was not a subtle claim to authority. It was a blunt, physical demonstration of it, permanently set in the heart of the city. The head was proof of his ability to mobilize society itself, a constant reminder that his power was as solid and unyielding as the basalt from which it was carved. Yet their purpose was also deeply spiritual. These heads were likely conceived as eternal guardians, placed at the entrances to ceremonial plazas or facing the Great Pyramids. Their heavy-lidded gaze watched over the most sacred spaces. They were the silent sentinels protecting the axis of the world, the boundary between the human realm and the world of the gods. In a society where rulers were often seen as intermediaries with the divine, these stone faces may have served as permanent conduits. They were vessels for the spirit of the ruler, or perhaps for an ancestral force, ensuring his protective presence and his connection to the gods persisted long after his physical death. The head was not just a memorial, it was an active participant in the spiritual life of the city, a stone ancestor who watched, judged, and legitimized the actions of the living. This fusion of the political and the spiritual is the key. The ruler demonstrated his earthly power by commissioning the monument, and in doing so, he cemented his eternal, divine role as the guardian of his people. The colossal head was his legacy, his throne, and his soul, all captured in a single, everlasting block of stone. But the legacy of these stone kings was not meant to last forever. At San Lorenzo, the very city that boasted the most impressive collection of these monuments, archaeologists uncovered a startling scene. The colossal heads once proudly displayed were found toppled, their faces scarred with deep, deliberate grooves. They had not fallen to time or invaders, they were systematically mutilated. Even more telling was their final resting place, carefully laid in long, orderly trenches, buried by the very people who created them. This was not an act of random violence, but a calculated and ritualistic termination. The evidence points to a profound internal transformation within Olmec society. One leading theory suggests this was an act of damnatio memoriae, a condemnation of memory. When a dynasty fell or a powerful ruler was disgraced, his legacy was literally erased. The defacement of his stone portrait, the slicing of the nose or the gouging of the eyes, was a symbolic killing, a way to strip him of his power and presence in the afterlife. By burying the heads in neat rows, the new order may have been laying the old kings to rest in a formal, almost respectful ceremony, simultaneously honoring their past authority while definitively closing their chapter in history. Another possibility is that this was a response to an external threat. Perhaps an invading force sought to humiliate the San Lorenzo rulers by destroying their most powerful symbols. Yet the careful, orderly nature of the burial argues against a chaotic conquest. An enemy would more likely have smashed the heads to dust or thrown them into a river. The precision of the trenches suggests a ritual carried out by the Olmec themselves, a conscious decision to retire the old gods of a fading era. Why would a civilization turn so violently against its own history? The answer may lie in the very nature of power. These stone faces were not just art, they were vessels of authority. To break them was to break the chain of that authority, to make a clean slate for a new world to be born from the bones of the old. The silent stone faces that guarded Olmec cities were not an end point, but a powerful beginning. The cultural DNA of this mother civilization was woven so deeply into the fabric of Mesoamerica that its echoes can be seen for centuries in the art and rituals of every major culture that followed. The colossal heads were the ultimate expression of a new idea, that a ruler's power could be made permanent and visible on a monumental scale. This concept of royal portraiture in stone became a cornerstone for later societies. The Maya, for instance, erected towering stelae, stone pillars carved with the images of their kings, often holding the symbols of their authority, a direct ideological descendant of the Olmec heads. While the Maya used inscribed hieroglyphs to name their rulers and record their deeds, the core message was identical: a leader's divine right to rule, immortalized in stone for all to see. The Aztecs, too, created massive sculptures of their rulers and gods, like the famous colossal head of the goddess Coyolxauhqui, whose dismembered body was carved at the base of the great temple in Tenochtitlan. The medium and the style evolved, but the fundamental impulse to project power through colossal stone art was an Olmec invention. This artistic legacy extended far beyond portraiture. The Olmec were the first master carvers of jade, a stone they revered more than gold, believing it to hold the essence of water, vegetation, and life itself. They developed sophisticated lapidary techniques to saw, grind, and polish this incredibly hard stone into breathtaking objects, from delicate celts to fearsome jaguar masks. This profound reverence for jade and the skills to work it became a permanent feature of Mesoamerican elite culture. For the Maya, jade was the ultimate symbol of royalty and the soul. Their kings were buried in suits of jade beads, with mosaic jade death masks covering their faces to ensure their divine rebirth. A Maya lord's worth was measured in part by the jade jewels he wore. The Aztecs, who called it Chalchihuatl, continued this tradition, valuing jade above all other materials, receiving it as tribute from conquered lands and using it in the most sacred offerings. The Olmec established the very language of preciousness that would resonate for 2,000 years. Perhaps the most widespread Olmec contribution was the sacred bowl game. This was not a simple sport, but a ritual drama of life, death, and cosmic renewal. The Olmec built the first formal bowl courts and created the distinctive gear, including the heavy hip guards and protective helmets seen on their figurines. They established the game's core symbolism, where the movement of a solid rubber ball represented the journey of the sun across the sky and into the underworld. This powerful ritual was adopted and adapted by every subsequent civilization. The Maya elevated it to a central part of their mythology, immortalizing it in their Popol Vuh creation story, where hero twins defeat the lords of the underworld in a bowl game. Their enormous stone bowl courts with towering sloped walls became standard features of every major city. For the Aztecs, the game, called Olmec, was both a popular spectator event and a solemn religious rite, sometimes culminating in the sacrifice of a captain whose death was believed to ensure the sun would rise again. From the Olmec heartland to the great Aztec capital, the thunderous sound of the rubber ball echoed the same fundamental beliefs about the universe. Even the gods of Mesoamerica bear the unmistakable imprint of Olmec imagination. They were the first to depict a consistent pantheon of deities, many of which became archetypes for later cultures. The Olmec dragon, a fiery, serpentine creature often shown with flared eyebrows and a snout, is a clear precursor to the Maya god Itzamna and the Aztec feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl. Their worship of a rain god, depicted with a distinctive cleft head and a snarling mouth, evolved into the much-loved Maya god Chac and the Aztec Tlaloc. Most importantly, the Olmec concept of a divine ruler, a man who could channel the power of these gods and perhaps even transform into a powerful animal spirit like the jaguar, set the template for the Maya Cayuhal Ajor, or Holy Lord, and the Aztec Tlatoni. The Olmec did not just invent art forms and rituals, they invented the very spiritual and political framework that would structure Mesoamerican civilization for millennia. Their colossal heads were the first bold statement in a long conversation about power and the divine, a conversation that would eventually fill the jungle with the temples of Palenque and rise the towering pyramids of Tenochtitlan. Among the 10 ancient rulers recovered from San Lorenzo, one stands apart as the undisputed patriarch. San Lorenzo Monument 1, the first colossal head discovered at that city, carries an aura of weathered authority that feels both immense and deeply personal. His face is a masterpiece of Olmec realism, bearing the marks of both time and what appears to be intentional disrespect. A deep, gashing groove cuts across the bridge of his nose, a wound inflicted millennia ago. His lips are full and broad, set in a firm, unsmiling line that suggests immense responsibility. His brow is heavy and pronounced, shadowing eyes that seem to look inward, as if contemplating the weight of his own reign. This is not a generic mask of power, it is the face of a specific individual, a man who commanded absolute loyalty and whose likeness was deemed important enough to be carved from a mountain. The helmet he wears is his crown, a tight-fitting cap adorned with an intricate pattern of woven straps or cords. This is not a simple design, it is a complex emblem, a heraldic device that likely announced his specific lineage, his title, or a great ceremonial achievement to every person who looked upon him. The craftsmanship is breathtaking, especially when you consider the tools available. The smooth, almost polished curve of his cheek, the sharp line of his lip, the subtle asymmetry that makes his expression so hauntingly alive, all of it was achieved by patiently abrading solid basalt with stones and sand. This head is more than a sculpture, it is a biographical statement written in stone. He embodies the pinnacle of Olmec artistic skill and the core idea of divine kingship. His damaged face and his eventual burial tell a parallel story, one of a fall from grace or a deliberate end to his dynasty. He is a founding father whose name is lost, but whose stern, resolute presence continues to define our understanding of America's first civilization. While the stern rulers of San Lorenzo brood with an almost inward focus, a different kind of power stares out from the ceremonial heart of Venta. Meet the warrior king, Venta Monument 4. His face is a study in rugged, unvarnished authority. Where other heads possess a certain noble stillness, his expression is almost pugnacious, with a wide, flat nose and a strong, jutting jaw that seems clenched with raw determination. His eyes, beneath a heavy, bar-like brow, hold a direct and challenging gaze. This is not the face of a distant philosopher king, but of a man of action, a leader forged in conflict and command. What truly sets him apart, however, is the story told by his crown. His helmet is not adorned with abstract patterns or woven cords. Instead, it features a distinct sculpted ornament on the front, a pair of stylized animal paws, claws carefully rendered, gripping the stone above his forehead. This is no mere decorative motif, it is a powerful, symbolic statement. In the Olmec world, the jaguar was the ultimate symbol of untamed strength and shamanic power, a creature that ruled both the forest and the spirit realm. To wear its claws was to claim those ferocious attributes as your own. This single detail has led many scholars to see Monument 4 not just as a ruler, but as a supreme war leader. His entire visage, from his combative expression to his symbolic headdress, suggests a life defined by military prowess. He could be the Olmec equivalent of a conquering general, a leader whose right to rule was earned on the battlefield and whose helmet proclaimed his fearsome, jaguar-like nature to both his subjects and his enemies. Yet there is another layer to this powerful imagery. The jaguar was also deeply associated with shamanic transformation, with the ability to cross between the human world and the supernatural one. This opens a fascinating possibility. Perhaps his warrior identity was not purely physical. He may have been seen as a spiritual combatant, a leader who fought not just against rival cities, but against dark forces and chaos itself, using his jaguar-given power to protect his people from both earthly and supernatural threats. His prominence at La Venta, one of only 4 heads guarding the sacred island city, suggests his legacy was foundational. He represents a critical facet of Olmec kingship, where the strength of the warrior and the power of the shaman were fused into a single, terrifying and revered authority. The physical evidence for this monumental work was not found with the heads themselves, but scattered around the ancient cities and quarries, waiting to be pieced together like a vast Stone Age toolkit. Archaeologists have uncovered the actual tools that transformed raw basalt into living portraits. In workshops at sites like San Lorenzo, they found piles of cobblestones, many made of incredibly hard stones like jadate and hematite. These were not random rocks. They show clear signs of intensive use, with battered and flattened ends from countless hours of hammering and pecking. These are the original stone hammers. Alongside them, excavators discovered smaller, more specialized tools. There were pointed picks of jadate for the initial rough shaping and flake tools of chert, a type of flint which could have been used for finer detailing, almost like a Stone Age scalpel. For the final, smooth polish, they relied on abrasives. Caches of sand and quartz particles were found, along with flat stones that showed long, polished grooves from being rubbed back and forth, used as sanding blocks. This was a complete technological system, one capable of taking a boulder from a jagged mass to a polished king. But could these simple tools really achieve such a feat? To answer that, modern researchers turned to experimental archaeology. They gathered replicas of these stone hammers and abrasives, and then they got to work on blocks of basalt. The process was brutally slow and physically demanding. The initial pecking with a jadate hammer required precise, repetitive strikes, each one removing only a tiny grain or flake of the volcanic rock. Shaping a single square foot of the surface could take weeks of constant labor. The polishing stage was even more tedious, involving teams of workers rubbing the stone with sand and water for countless hours. Yet the experiments proved it was entirely possible. The ancient methods worked. They did not require magic or lost technology, just an immense amount of coordinated human effort, patience, and a deep generational knowledge of stone. This successful replication does not diminish the Olmec achievement, it magnifies it. It confirms that their true genius was not in a secret tool, but in the social organization and unwavering will to see such a project through year after painstaking year. These colossal heads were not solitary wonders, but the most visible peaks of a vast artistic mountain range. To truly understand them, we must step back and see the full landscape of Olmec creativity, a world rich with spiritual power and political symbolism. Alongside the giant heads, the Olmec created what we call altars, though this name is likely a grand misdirection. These are massive blocks of stone, some weighing over 30 tons, carved with intricate scenes on their sides. The most famous type shows a central figure, often a powerful ruler, seated within a niche or cave mouth, holding a rope that binds a captive. This is not a place for offering incense, it is a throne. These altars were almost certainly the ceremonial seats of Olmec rulers, literal platforms of power from which they would preside over rituals and demonstrate their authority. The scene of the bound captive carved into the stone base sent an unmistakable message. The man sitting here holds the power of life and death. Then there are the enigmatic jaguar figures, some of the most haunting art from the ancient world. These sculptures blend human and jaguar features, creating infants or supernatural beings with snarling mouths, fangs, and distinctive cleft heads. They were not depicting literal monsters, but rather expressing a core Olmec spiritual belief, the concept of transformational power. A shaman or a ruler, through ritual, could be believed to take on the attributes of the jaguar, the most fearsome predator of the jungle. These figures represent that moment of transformation, a being existing in both the human and spirit realms simultaneously. They are a physical manifestation of the belief that their leaders could channel the raw, untamed force of nature itself. On a smaller, but no less significant scale, the Olmec were master lapidaries, working the precious stone jade with incredible skill. They carved beautiful celts, which were polished axe-shaped objects that were not tools, but symbols of authority and lightning, perhaps held by rulers during ceremonies. Their most breathtaking jade works are the mosaic masks, assembled from dozens of intricately shaped pieces of jade to form a lifelike, yet supernatural, face. Creating such a mask without modern adhesives was a feat of engineering and artistry, a testament to the immense value they placed on this radiant green stone, which they saw as the essence of life, water, and maize. The colossal heads were the public monuments of kings, but these jade masks were their most sacred and personal regalia, perhaps worn in life or placed over the face of a ruler in death to ensure his divine rebirth. The heads were not an isolated phenomenon. They were one powerful voice in a grand chorus of stone and jade, all singing the same song of power, transformation, and a deep, enduring connection to the forces of the world. The story of the Olmec heads did not end with their burial. For decades, the dense jungles of Veracruz guarded their secrets until a new generation of explorers arrived with fresh determination. One of the most pivotal figures was the American archaeologist Matthew Stirling, who in the 1930s and 40s led a series of groundbreaking expeditions. His work at the sites of Tres Zapotes and La Venta, often accompanied by his wife Marion, catapulted the Olmec from a peripheral mystery to the forefront of Mesoamerican archaeology. It was Stirling who, with meticulous excavation, began to prove that this was not a derivative culture, but the mother civilization itself, the true fountainhead of complex society in the Americas. His discoveries provided the first clear stratigraphic evidence that the Olmec predated the Maya, a revolutionary idea at the time. He did not just dig for treasure, he dug for context, carefully mapping the positions of monuments and uncovering the intricate jade offerings that revealed the spiritual depth of this lost world. His work laid the entire foundation for everything we know today. That foundation is now being built upon with 21st century tools. Modern archaeologists like Ann Cyphers of the National Autonomous University of Mexico have taken up the torch, leading long-term, painstaking projects at San Lorenzo. Her work is a masterclass in slow, careful science, sifting through ancient soil to understand not just the kings, but the common people who made their reign possible. She and her team have uncovered the workshops where the heads were shaped, finding the very stone hammers and polishing tools used by Olmec artisans. This has transformed our understanding from one of abstract wonder to one of tangible, gritty process. We now know where the workers lived, what they ate, and how their society was organized to support such monumental projects. Yet the jungle still holds its cards close. The most exciting advances now come from seeing through the earth itself. Technologies like LiDAR, which uses laser pulses from an aircraft to digitally strip away the forest canopy, and ground-penetrating radar, which can map subsurface features without a single shovel strike, are revolutionizing the search. These tools have revealed the ghostly outlines of entire settlement networks, hidden causeways, and previously unknown ceremonial platforms surrounding the known Olmec centers. The question every archaeologist is now asking is a thrilling one. Are there more heads still waiting to be found? LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar can identify large, buried stone objects, and they are scanning the ancient landscapes for the telltale signature of a colossal, rounded form. The hunt is no longer a matter of luck and guesswork. It is a targeted, scientific pursuit. We are on the verge of potentially finding the 18th or even the 19th colossal head, a discovery that could rewrite our entire understanding of Olmec lineage and power. The silent stone faces have not yet given up all their secrets, and the technology to finally hear them is now in our hands. The serene permanence of these stone faces is an illusion. After surviving for 3,000 years, the colossal heads now face their most unpredictable adversary, the modern world. The very environment that birthed them now threatens to erase them. When these monuments stood in the open air of their cities, they were exposed to a constant, slow assault from the tropical climate. Torrential rains year after year seep into microscopic cracks in the basalt. The relentless humidity encourages the growth of lichens and moss, whose tiny root systems can slowly pry the stone apart from within. This natural erosion is a patient process, but the heads that remained in their original settings were slowly, inevitably returning to the earth. The greater danger, however, came with industrialization. As cities and farms expanded around the ancient Olmec heartland, a new kind of threat emerged: air pollution. Acidic particles from vehicle exhaust and agricultural burning can settle on the stone surface. When mixed with rainwater, this creates a weak acid that actively eats away at the mineral structure of the basalt, dulling the sharp features and erasing the subtle details that the Olmec artisans worked so hard to create. A single rainstorm now can do more damage than a century of natural weathering. This left archaeologists with a monumental dilemma. Should these national treasures be left in their original context, where they are part of the sacred landscape but face certain degradation, or should they be removed to the safety of a controlled museum environment, even if that means severing their physical connection to the places they were meant to guard? For many of the heads, the choice became clear. The risk of permanent loss was too great. The complex process of moving a colossal head in the modern era is a careful ballet of science and engineering. Unlike the Olmec, who used log rollers and rafts, today's teams use hydraulic lifts, custom-built steel cradles, and lowboy trucks. The head is first meticulously documented and photographed in situ. Conservators then clean the surface of biological growth and apply temporary consolidants to stabilize any fragile areas. It is then gently wrapped in protective foam and secured within a rigid frame to prevent any movement during its journey. This entire operation is a nerve-wracking endeavor, as a single mistake could cause irreparable damage to an irreplaceable piece of human history. Once inside a museum like the Museo de Antropología in Jalapa or the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, the heads enter a new phase of their existence. They are no longer exposed to the elements, but they are not simply put on display and forgotten. Their conservation is an ongoing, active process. Museum climatologists work to maintain a stable temperature and humidity level, preventing the stone from expanding and contracting, which can cause stress fractures. The heads are regularly inspected with high-resolution cameras and even 3D laser scanners, which can detect changes in the surface so minute they are invisible to the human eye. This data creates a digital health record for each monument, allowing conservators to monitor its condition over decades. The goal is not to restore the heads to a like-new state, which would be a falsehood, but to stabilize them, halting the decay so that the scars of time, including the ancient gouges and the wear of millennia, remain as a part of their authentic story. These efforts are a race against time, a global commitment to ensuring that the silent kings of the Olmec continue to stare down the centuries, their enigmatic faces preserved for all the generations yet to come. That silent, stone-faced authority has not been confined to the jungle. The colossal heads have captured the modern imagination, stepping out of the archaeological record and into the bright lights of popular culture, where their mystery is often amplified into something even more spectacular. In the world of cinema, their most famous appearance is arguably in the Disney animated film The Road to El Dorado, where a massive, talking stone head serves as a guardian of the hidden Golden City, offering cryptic advice to the two heroes. This portrayal captures the sense of ancient wisdom and otherworldly power we project onto these monuments, transforming them from portraits of kings into sentient, magical entities. Video games have eagerly adopted the heads as set pieces for adventure and mystery. The Tomb Raider series, known for its globe-trotting archaeological puzzles, features Olmec-style heads and temples as obstacles for Lara Croft to overcome, framing them as relics of a dangerous and mystical past. Perhaps the most influential depiction comes from the world of pseudo-archaeology. Books and television shows like Ancient Aliens frequently feature the colossal heads, pointing to their striking features and the perceived impossibility of their creation as evidence for intervention from extraterrestrial visitors. This narrative taps directly into the African features controversy, repackaging it as proof that these were not local rulers but visitors from another world, who provided the technology and knowledge to a primitive society. These portrayals are undeniably compelling, offering simple, thrilling answers to complex historical questions. They shape public perception by prioritizing spectacle over scholarship, turning the heads into symbols of a lost world we can no longer comprehend without the help of aliens or advanced, forgotten civilizations. The real story of the Olmec, one of human ingenuity and social organization, is often overshadowed by these more sensational tales. Yet, this cultural fascination is a testament to the raw power these sculptures still hold over us. They are so monumental, so enigmatic, that we feel compelled to fill their silence with our own biggest stories, our own deepest myths. The heads have become a blank screen, and we cannot help but project our own wonders onto their timeless stone faces. Despite their imposing presence, the colossal heads are surrounded by profound silences, leaving us with puzzles that modern science has yet to solve. One of the most tantalizing questions is a simple matter of numbers. Are there more of these stone giants still hidden, waiting beneath the jungle floor? With only 17 heads recovered, the record feels incomplete. The known heads are clustered at just a few major centers, yet the Olmec influence stretched across a vast region. LiDAR technology has revealed the ghostly outlines of smaller, unexplored sites, and it is entirely possible that another ruler's portrait lies buried near a forgotten plaza, its face turned forever to the earth. Finding an 18th head would not just be another discovery, it would be a revolution, potentially revealing a lost dynasty or a powerful rival city that could reshape our entire map of the Olmec world. Each undiscovered head is a missing chapter in the biography of an entire civilization. Then there is the riddle carved onto the heads themselves, the cryptic language of the helmets. We can see they are crowns of authority, but what specific titles or victories do those jaguar paws and knotted cords proclaim? Is a head with a plain helmet a ruler from a simpler time, or does its simplicity signify a different kind of power, perhaps religious rather than military? Without a Rosetta Stone to translate these stone emblems, the helmets remain a locked archive of Olmec political life. We can read the general message of power, but the specific stories of the individuals, their names, and their precise roles in society are still sealed within those intricate designs. Perhaps the greatest mystery of all is not how the Olmec thrived, but why their era of greatness ended. What caused the collapse of this mother culture? The evidence points not to a single cataclysm, but to a slow unraveling. Some theories suggest environmental pressures, such as a shift in river courses that damaged the agricultural heartland or volcanic activity in the Tuxtlas that blanketed fields in ash. Others propose internal strife, where rising social inequality or conflict between competing centers like San Lorenzo and La Venta fractured their political unity. There is no evidence of a massive invasion, yet the deliberate burial of the San Lorenzo heads speaks of a profound internal crisis, a cultural schism where the old gods were toppled to make way for a new order that never fully arrived. The civilization did not vanish overnight, but its central power dissolved, its people scattering and blending into the tapestry of succeeding cultures. The heads were left behind as their primary legacy, silent witnesses to a golden age whose final sunset we still cannot fully explain. These stone sentinels hold the answers, guarding the last secrets of America's first great civilization until the day we learn how to ask the right questions. From a raw boulder in the Tuxtla Mountains to a polished king in a sacred city, the journey of a colossal head was the Olmec civilization in motion. It was a symphony of coordinated effort, a testament to a will so powerful it could command the very landscape. Thousands of hands, guided by generations of knowledge, worked in concert to achieve the impossible. They harnessed fire and water to break the mountain's grip, moved 20-ton blocks with nothing but logs and ropes, and with simple stone tools, they persuaded volcanic rock to show the face of a ruler. This was not magic, it was the raw expression of a society operating at its peak, a society that laid the entire foundation for the cultures that would follow. The colossal heads are their ultimate legacy. They are more than art, they are frozen ambition. They are the silent, stoic faces of America's first great civilization, a culture that emerged from the sweltering jungles of Veracruz to become the mother culture of the Americas. Their true power lies not in the answers they give, but in the profound mysteries they hold. Who were these 17 individuals? Were they kings, shamans, or legendary ballplayers? Why were they so carefully buried by their own people? The stone lips remain sealed, guarding secrets 3,000 years old. What do you believe is the true story behind these enigmatic faces? Share your own theories in the comments below, and if you are drawn to the world's greatest historical mysteries, subscribe to keep exploring the past with us.